Hi everyone and welcome to Linger Longer with Books. My name's Catherine and in this week's video I'm going to be running through the books that I read in September and a few recent bookish buys. I'm going to do my best to keep this very short and sweet and be succinct. That's always a bit of a challenge for me in terms of my speaking and my writing, but we're going to give it a go. So there were 3 books that I read fully in September. It's been quite a hectic month for me, especially work-wise. There's a lot of change, a lot of demand and pressures and extra hours and big deadlines. So work has definitely been kind of an overriding kind of need for my energy to go in that direction. So I haven't had that much time or kind of mental bandwidth to kind of read as probably freely or as kind of enjoyably as I would in other months. But anyway, with that said, the first book that I read, I think this is the right order, was The Greedy Queen by Annie Gray. And for those of you out there, I've mentioned Annie a little bit on my channel so far. She is a brilliant food historian. She's British. And I had read her previous At Christmas We Feast, which is all around the kind of tradition of cooking and eating and recipes and festivities around the Christmas period. And that was really enjoyable kind of to know how food and entertainment and socialising and all of those different aspects has evolved over the centuries. So if you fancy that one for wintertime, I definitely recommend. That's called At Christmas We Feast. But this one is one of Annie's other published works, and you might just see it says Eating with Victoria. So the Queen it refers to is Queen Victoria, and it's got beautiful end papers of the kind of the old-fashioned recipes. But essentially this was a really enjoyable read. Annie goes through Victoria's life from a very young princess through to a very young queen, and then her kind of substantial reign, and really charts the food that we know from sort of paper records and other documents and artifacts that Victoria liked, kind of what the expectations were if you were dining with a royal. It mentions recipes that I can recall, such as turtle soup. It sounds like they were quite heavy on breakfasts, quite kind of meat focused, and definitely not for the faint-hearted, I would say. But it really gives an insight into not only the kind of the numerous courses and the timings. It felt like they ate quite late if you were sat at Victoria's table, but it also gives an insight into the kind of the upstairs, downstairs, all of the meals, the difference in meals that the staff would cook, the actual hierarchy of the kitchen with the kind of the senior chefs, just the spread of different cooks that they had in terms of like sweet and pastry and like the main courses, and to do with the wages in terms of men being paid more than women, what food that downstairs were eating in comparison to upstairs. And it goes into the sort of the social kind of history of food production at scale in the palaces. Annie goes into the importance of sort of sanitation and ventilation of air and sewage works and all those sorts of things that actually behind the scenes are key to kind of run a really smooth kitchen. So this was highly enjoyable. I would recommend it if you are interested in the Victorian period, as am I. And it's definitely going to stay with me. And it's really nice because at the start of each different chapter, you've got a recipe of the time. So this one is curry of chickens a la Indienne. So yeah, it's interesting to know kind of what dishes have disappeared and what has remained and what's evolved. So Toad in the Hole, classic. I'm a fan. I don't know if any of you are a fan of Toad in the Hole out there, but that, in a nutshell, is The Greedy Queen by Annie Gray. So that was my first read of September. Next up was A Fortunate Woman, A Country Doctor's Story by Polly Morland. This was the book that I picked for my September book club that I run obviously every month locally to where I live in person. So I will try and add details to it if anyone is sort of on the south coast in Hampshire in the UK and would love to come along. I would love to see you there. There is a definite plan for the December book club to be online, so that opens it up to everyone on here. So I would absolutely love for you to come along to that perhaps in December. So there will be details on my social channels, so just keep an eye out for those. But back to A Fortunate Woman. This is non-fiction. It is, I think, just, if I had to sort of sum it up, it is a really important story and account of the role of a country doctor. So GPs are perhaps better known in England and the UK, general practitioners, but a country doctor was very much a certain sort of stylised medical professional since the NHS was created in the 1950s, definitely through those decades. But GPs, country doctors, however you want to term them, are kind of essential to support everyone through all of their health needs, right from birth all the way through to death. And this is really evident in this account. There are various stories of, for example, a bit of a traumatic experience with a woman who's pregnant and bleeding profusely, and the GP really calms her, even though the GP is terrified herself, until kind of further help gets there. Obviously, you've got to think about ambulance travel times, response times, if you are in a rural area, such as these residents of this community. There is another one where there is an elderly chap who is very evidently sort of anti-dentists, anti-doctors, very much a traditional sort of don't reach out to access medical help, but actually it's so important. There's one where a man, I think, crushes or severely injures his hand with some sort of power tool, and the GP kind of gets to him, like administers first aid, which is critical to kind of stem the blood flow, the blood loss and the injury, and stop infection, and to pack it before, again, kind of he gets into like the acute hospital for kind of medical kind of operations surgery that isn't able to be carried out in the community. This does go through to COVID times, which is obviously very, very memorable for all of us. It has real pictures of doctors, how they had to adapt overnight to care for patients in their surgeries, how they had to then vaccinate and roll out the vaccination programs to keep everyone safe. There is a story here of a fairly young chap who was displaying kind of worrying symptoms, but the doctor decided to call him into the surgery, and I think, can't quite recall the condition, but it was life-threatening. I think his oxygen saturation levels were just through the floor, nowhere near what they should be. So the doctor kind of recounts that circumstances where she ultimately saved his life just because she had a sort of doctor's instinct to call him into surgery and do follow further tests, because had he remained at home locked away with, I think, suspected or known COVID in his bedroom on his own, shielding from his partner, that he would have gone to sleep and would not have woken up. So absolutely, GPs are critical. They should be celebrated, they should be honoured, they should be recognised, and they should be protected. Their role absolutely should not be diminished or should disappear in our communities. I work in the NHS myself here in England. I work in a primary care organisation, and I absolutely salute everyone who is often not very visible to the general public. The headlines often hit the kind of the emergency departments, and that is not taking anything away from those brilliant colleagues there, but actually a lot of primary care colleagues, teams are going out to people's houses, keeping them out of hospitals. They are not seen. They haven't got that lens on them. but they are absolutely amazing day in, day out. So that is it. I was a big fan of A Fortunate Woman by Polly Morland. Highly recommend it if you are interested in understanding a little bit more about healthcare in the UK. This was shortlisted for the Baillie Gifford Prize for Nonfiction 2022. So my third read of September was by Ash, Oak and Thorn by Melissa Harrison, and look how gorgeous that is. Look, I think that is just one of the prettiest covers that I own, and the back as well. Let's just take a moment to appreciate that. And actually inside, it's got a beautiful kind of map of the fictional world that we find our little folk in. I think my only disappointment, if that's the word, is that the illustrations inside weren't in colour, and I know that that's a production cost type thing, but I just think it would have been lovely to have some of the inside in colour. It's not, I know it's not always possible, but I think the actual outside cover makes up for it, really, if we're honest. So by Ash, Oak and Thorn, by Melissa Harrison, it is a really gentle, charming tale of little folk who are sort of navigating the kind of the big outside human world and the sort of the nature world as well. I won't give too much of the plot points away, but it basically encapsulates a little group of hidden folk. They are up against changes within their world. They have been around for centuries, but they're just coming to terms with having to go out on a journey to sort of help one of their own who is essentially disappearing, and they don't really understand why he's disappearing. It's quite worrying. But on the way, they encounter other creatures, other wildlife, and it really brings out those kind of messages around friendship, loyalty, trust, perseverance, the need to have courage when you're full of doubt and fear, and the camaraderie. So it is a beautiful little tale. I have to say that my fourth read that I haven't yet finished for September is the sequel, is by Rowan and You, and look how gorgeous that one is. By Ash, Oak and Thorn is set in springtime, as you could probably tell from the green lush colours on the front, but actually by Rowan and You is set very much in autumn. You can tell by the lovely mushrooms and the foliage on the front, and then the back there as well. So I'm really enjoying that, but honestly I cannot count that as read this month, because technically I'm just over halfway through. I am hoping to finish that later today, so that might meet my kind of 4 reads, the 4 of them for September, but it may well not, and I'm okay with that, because as I said, life takes over and there's only a set amount of hours in the day to enjoy that. But yes, by Ash, Oak and Thorn, it's a lovely tale, I think, for young readers, as well as older readers like myself. Like, I find myself at autumn time kind of going towards children's literature, and just kind of escaping into wholly other worlds, wholly escaping into different dimensions and lovely kind of other lands that we find in books such as this. It doesn't take too much brain power to immerse yourself. It's just kind of magical and kind of otherworldly. So if you get a chance, I would highly recommend By Ash, Oak and Thorn by Melissa Harrison, published by Chicken House, and there is a sequel to it. So please do try and get your hands on these two. I have owned them for a couple of years, so I am really glad that I finally kind of got to them and getting through them. So there is that. So there you go. That's my wrap up for September. But I actually thought that I would share just a couple of secondhand books and a very new cheap bargain book that I bought this weekend unexpectedly. So I'll just share those with you next. Okay, so everyone out there, who doesn't love a book bargain? Who doesn't love actually getting a book that isn't full price, unless we really have to? I love supporting kind of local library book sales and local charity shops, because obviously the support that we give them really helps them continue the great work that they're doing in their own Right, so first up was a book that I bought from my sister. This was in a local library sale on Saturday that I just happened to go into about 20 minutes before they were closing at the early afternoon. This is the story of classic crime in 100 books. It's compiled by Martin Edwards. My sister Rachel, who is also on social media, she's known as Books from My Bookshelf. You might see her feature or be mentioned in my posts and my videos. But Rachel bought me this book herself for birthday a few years ago, and it's a beautiful anthology of crime stories and crime authors through the ages. So it has different sections such as the Great Detective. So we've got the mysterious affair at Styles by Agatha Christie, the case of the late pig, Marjorie Allingham, and then it goes through various other aspects of crime writing. So things like Murder at the Manor, Birthday Party, CHB Kitchen. You've got Playing Politics, so you've got The Nursing Home Murder by Naomi Marsh and Henry Jellett, and so on. And it's just, I think it's just lovely to have these compiled as they are, so you can kind of dip in and out of the different chapters. You can kind of go to, I don't know, let's pick you can go to Quick Curtain, for example, by Alan Melville, published in 1934, and you can get a brilliant kind of summary of that published work. Also, what's lovely is you get some lovely kind of colour book covers. That sounds bizarre. I've just opened it at this random page. She Had to Have Gas, Rupert Penny, published by the Crime Club. Wow, that's quite a colour cover, and that's quite a book title, and quite a menacing policeman there. The Beast Must Die here by Nicholas Blake. So that is a lovely feature as well of these books, and the beautiful kind of black and white sepia kind of inside illustrations that you don't see much anymore unless you're kind of looking through old books or old kind of accounts of these books in their kind of maybe their sort of first few publications. Some of them are harder and harder to get hold of just because of their ages. They might have gone out of print. So anyway, this I got for 40p. It's in fantastic condition. I called Rachel, FaceTimed her, so she knows it's coming her way. I just thought that was a lovely addition to add to her non-fiction books, and that now we've each got a copy. So that's the story of classic crime in 100 books by Martin Edward. Okay, so yesterday I had a bit of an impromptu stop in Winchester, a lovely historic city. Quite near to where I live. I was going on to see family nearby afterwards, so I just timed it to go into Winchester for the last hour of Sunday shopping hours. So I went in around 3 o'clock, knowing that most of the shops would close at 4 o'clock. So trying to beat the busy crowds and just seeing what was around. So first up, I went into the Works. The Works is a chain shop in England. I think it's in the rest of the UK. Let me know out there if it is or isn't. But I was talking to a new colleague at work, or soon to be in my new team at work, Amy, and she was saying that she has watched a few of my videos and is intrigued by Steve Cavanagh. So I managed to spot Kill for Me, Kill for You, which is one of Steve's latest books. His very latest published book is Witness 8, that I've just read and I have reviewed on my channel. So look back at my previous videos in my library for that one. But this one was in the any 3 for £6 deal, or £2.50 for a single. So Amy doesn't know it yet, but I'm in the office with her tomorrow, Tuesday, and I will be gifting this just as a bit of a little random act of kindness. And I know for a fact it is her birthday on Friday, ahead of my own on Saturday. So I thought that just would be a really nice thing to do for her, for the sake of £2.50. And just a nod to thanking her for some brilliant work that she's done recently. and supporting me at work, as well as her birthday. So there you go. That is Kill For Me, Kill For You by Steve Cavanagh for the absolute bargain price of £2.50. Then I went into one of my all-time favourite charity shops, which is Oxfam Books in Winchester. I believe it's on Parchment Street if you're visiting and you're keen to know where it all is. This book I spotted upstairs in the non-fiction section, which has been on my TBR for a long time. It is Omelette by Jessie Ware. Food, Love, Chaos and Other Conversations. So Jessie Ware is a brilliantly talented singer, musician. Hopefully all of you are aware of her out there. This is a beautiful kind of short account, and it says, my mother's omelettes are slightly overdone but always generous in cheese and well seasoned. My omelettes are just the same, though more often slightly underdone and less carefully considered, and like my stories, they come in many forms. And so this is essentially a bit of, it's hailed as a dreamy food memoir, which is stuffed full of warmth and feeling and fun. And that's according to Bella Mackey. So celebration of food through Jessie's eyes. And this was £1.49. It's in brilliant condition. It doesn't look like it's been read. And I just thought that I would snap it up because I haven't seen this in charity shops before. So it was an absolute no-brainer. And within it, is a bit of a tale because it has a bookmark for the Main Street Trading Company. So I do wonder if the previous owner bought this book from there, or was when they obviously handed it in, they had been reading using this bookmark as to mark the pages through this one. I do think that this is a book you probably could read in a day. It is kind of on my mind to take when I travel to Boston in America later this year. I think it is something that we could sort of start and stop easily on a plane trip. So we'll see. That might make its way into my suitcase. So that is Omelette by Jessie Ware for £1.49. Then last but not least, this again was from Oxfam Books in Winchester. It was an absolute fantastic spot. It is The Gathering by C J Tudor. This is CJ's latest story. I saw her speak at Waterstones in Southampton, West Key, a couple of months back now. It felt like it was early summer. I think we were all in summer clothes at that point. But I heard CJ talk about this. I'm really intrigued. It says, welcome to Dead Heart, Alaska. Population 673 living. And if you don't know about it, it just says, in a small Alaskan town, a boy is found with his throat ripped out and the blood drained from his body. The brutality of the murder chillingly echoes a killing from 25 years ago. And then you've got an outstate detective, Barbara. She kind of comes on the scene to assist a sheriff called Jensen Tucker. And yeah, it sounds like all is not well in Dead Heart. There is some serious bloodthirsty things out there, some bloodshed, not to the gruesome degree, because I'm not kind of in it for sort of gruesome blood and guts, but I am really interested to see what happens in this novel. I picked it up, given it's only just very recently come out, for £2.99. So was absolutely chuffed to get my hands on that one. I have already loved, where's CJ's latest? I did really enjoy The Drift. I have recommended this and loaned it out to family and friends, and I'd got that one for £3. So when these bargains sort of just jump out at you in the shop, it's just rude not to buy them, isn't it? So there you go. Those are the books that I scooped up at the weekend for bargains. So all in all, what have we got? Got sort of roughly 40p, £3, £3.40, £2.50, £3.90, and then £1.50. What's that, £5.40-ish? I don't know. My maths, it's early in the morning. So there you go. They are the bargains that I got, as well as the books that I've read in September. Yeah, there you go. I think if you have been watching this far in honour of an omelette, leave me like an egg emoji. I think let's go for that. We haven't had an egg emoji yet, so What I would say is thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate your support on here, whether you are a returning viewer or you're new to my channel. If you're new, I would really appreciate you hitting the like and subscribe button to let me know that kind of you're out there and you can kind of watch my future videos as well. Let me know in the comments below if any of these books are on your radar, if you've read any of them already and what your thoughts are. But I hope you've enjoyed this week's video. Here's to a brilliant week of reading ahead. I hope you get some downtime and chance to dip into your hardback, paperback, audiobook, however you kind of absorb brilliant books. But for now, I shall sign off. I've got my work day to do. So take care, and until next week, have a great time and be safe and be well. So yeah, see you then.